Assessment number 1. Why is form handling and validation important in web development, particularly in terms of data integrity and security? So, data integrity, form handling and validations ensure that only correctly formatted and relevant data is saved to the database. This prevents issues like incomplete data, incorrect types, or values that exceed specified limits. And security, validation guards against potential threats like SQL injections, cross-site scripting, and other attacks by sanitizing user inputs and filtering out harmful data. Laravel requests validation method is crucial for ensuring data integrity and security by specifying rules for each input field. For example, here, username is validated to ensure it is not empty and is formatted correctly as a username. And password is required and must be at least 8 characters long, which ensure basic security for password. Okay, 2. What are some key Laravel features that help prevent security vulnerabilities such as SQL injection and cross-site request forgery when handling form data? So, SQL injection protection. Laravel Eloquent ORM and query builders use prepared statements which automatically escape inputs, reducing the risk of SQL injections. And cross-site request forgery. Laravel uses CSRF tokens to ensure that forms submitted to the applications are genuine and not from an external malicious source. Okay, so this is one example of CSRF token. So the CSRF directive generates a hidden input with a unique token that Laravel verifies on form submissions, helping to prevent CSRF attacks. And number 3. Explain how would you create a basic form in Laravel using a blade template and handle its submission controller. Include an example of how would you define validation rules. So first, we will make a blade template that will look like this. So the CSRF add a CSRF token to secure the form, and the route register points to the register route where the form will be proceed. And this is a example of how would a controller code look like. So the request validate specifies validation rules. Name required must be a string and a maximum length of 255. And this required must be a valid format and should be unique in the user's table. Number 4. How can customizing validations message improve the user's experience in a web applications? Provide an example of how would you customize and display validation error message in a blade template. Custom message make the interface more user-friendly by explaining specific validation errors in a clear way. Okay, so here. And displaying error blade templates. The error field display validation message next to specific field if validation fails. And the message holds the actual error message text which can be customized in the controller. This is the message. And number 5. What are the benefits of centralizing validation logic in Laravel applications? And how does this contribute to the maintainability of a web applications? First is consistency. By centralizing validation in one place, you can ensure that all instances of the form follow the same rules. Second is maintainability. Centralized validation makes it easy to update rules in one place if requirements change. Third is reusability. Custom form request classes in Laravel can be used across multiple controllers, promoting reusability. Example using a form request class. So you can create a form request by using this command. And then inside that class, inside the register request, you'll see something like this. And then the controller here, and this code will handle the data. And the register request handles all validations and custom messages, simplifying the controller code and centralizing validation logic. Assessment number 2. What is the role of middleware in Laravel authentication system, and how does it help protect routes and resources from unauthorized access? So middleware in Laravel acts as a filter for incoming HTTP requests. In the authentication system, middleware like AUTH or OAuth ensures that only authenticated users can access certain routes. Middleware intercepts requests before they read the controller, checking if the user is logged in or has specific role permissions. So here is an example to protect route that apply in OAuth middleware. So here, if an authenticated users try to access the dashboard, they'll be redirected to the login page or specified redirect locations. Okay, so number 2. How does Laravel built-in authentication system handle users' registrations and login, including the management of session tokens and the validations of input data? Laravel authentication system uses the OAuth facade to handle registration and login when a user registers or logins. Input validations. Laravel validates user data to ensure correctness and security. Session management. After a successful authentication, Laravel creates a session for the user, storing a session token, typically a cookie, on the client side. And token management. For API requests, Laravel generates an API token like a JWT or personal access token instead of a session, depending on the configurations. So this is a example registration request. And number 3, explain the importance of security measures like SQL injection preventions and XSS protection in login and registration form. How does Laravel assist in preventing these vulnerabilities? So SQL injections. Laravel ORM Eloquent uses parameterized queries automatically escaping inputs to prevent SQL injections. And the cross-site scripting, Laravel escape outputs in blade templates by default using the bracket syntax, which prevents attack from injecting malicious script. For example, here. So in this query above, Laravel simply binds the email parameter, preventing SQL injections. Number 4, how would you create and apply custom middleware in Laravel to restrict access to specific routes based on user role, such as an admin-only route? Okay, so first is we're going to create a custom middleware which will look something like this. And then define that middleware, admin middleware, like this. So this middleware checks if the login user has an admin role. And then you will register the middleware in the kernel PHP, and then you will apply the middleware in the route. Number 5. In terms of scalability, how can Laravel authentication system be adapted to handle a growing number of users and requests? Give examples like session management or token-based authentications. Session management. By using a scalable session driver like Redis, Laravel can handle session efficiently across multiple servers. Token-based authentications. For stateless APIs, Laravel provide Passport or Sanctum which manage token-based authentication and support horizontal scaling. For example, Laravel Laravel Sanctum enables API token based on authentication with minimal configurations. The token can then be used in API requests, allowing for scalable stateless interaction between client applications and the backend. Assessment number 3. What are the key steps involved in implementing the create operations in Laravel, and how do blade views and form handling play a role in this process? Okay, so first is you're going to define a route. Create a route to display the form and another to handle the form submissions. And blade view will create a blade view for the form using a CSRF for security. And controller, which will create a method to handle the form submissions. This method will validate, sanitize, and save the data to the database. Number 2. Explain the importance of data validation and sanitations in CRUD operations. How does Laravel ensure security when handling user input during these operations? So data validations ensures that the only correctly formatted and expected data is saved, reducing the chance of application errors and vulnerabilities. Sanitations protect the application from malicious inputs by cleaning data before it is saved the database. And Laravel built-in validations, which provides the validate method to apply the rules that prevent invalid data from entering the database. Okay, so, for example, this ensures that only valid title and content fields are saved, protecting the database from potentially harming or incomplete data. 3. Describe how would you implement the read operations in Laravel to retrieve and display data from the database using both a controller method and a blade view. Okay, so the controller fetches the data from the database using Eloquent and pass it to the blade view. And the blade view displays the data in a structured way using HTML. So your controller would be looking like this. And the blade view, which we will call index, will be looking like this. And all posts are retrieved and displayed as a list. These read operations ensure data can be shown to user in a readable format. Number 4. What is the purpose of the update operation in Laravel, and how would you handle the form submission to modify existing data entries in the database? So the purpose is to update operation allows users to modify existing data entries, such as editing a post title or content. And the form submissions retrieve the existing data, display it in form for editing, and update the database with the new values upon form submissions. Okay, so number 5. How can you ensure that the delete operation in Laravel is secure and prevent accidental or unauthorized data removal? What role does validation play in this process? So first is the confirmation prompt. Always confirm the delete actions either via a JavaScript prompt or a specific delete page. Second is the authorizations. Use middleware or policies to restrict delete operations to authorized users only. 3 is soft deletes. Laravel soft delete features store a deletion timestamp instead of a permanently removing data, allowing recovery if deleted accidentally. Okay. Assessment number 4. What is the purpose of Google reCAPTCHA And how does it enhance the security of web application when integrated in with forms? So Google reCAPTCHA is a security features that helps prevent automated bots from interacting with web forms. By ensuring that form submissions are made by real users, reCAPTCHA protect against spam, brute force attack, and other malicious activities. It presents users with a verification challenge to prove they are human, which block bots from bypassing the form security. Number 2. Describe the process of obtaining and registering reCAPTCHA site and secret keys from Google. Why is it important to update the domain when moving from localhost to a production environment? Okay, so steps to obtain reCAPTCHA key is first is you must visit the Google reCAPTCHA admin site. Then next is you will register a new site by entering your website domain and selecting the reCAPTCHA versions. And then Google will generate a site key and secret key which will you use to configure reCAPTCHA in your applications. So the importance of domain update is the domain registered in Google reCAPTCHA must match the domain of your applications. Moving from localhost to production requires updating these domain settings to ensure that reCAPTCHA works correctly and remains secure. Number 3. How would you integrate reCAPTCHA into a Laravel form? Outline the steps from installing the necessary package to adding the reCAPTCHA field in the form. So first is you must install the reCAPTCHA package. You're going to use a package like this to simplify the reCAPTCHA integrations. Then next is you will go to your env file and you will add the reCAPTCHA site key and secret key to your env file. Your site key and this is your secret key. And third is you will configure your app.php. So you will add the no CAPTCHA service provider in facade if necessary. Step 4 is you will add the reCAPTCHA to the blade form. In your blade view, add the CAPTCHA directive to render the reCAPTCHA widget. And number 4. Explain how to validate reCAPTCHA responses in Laravel. What role do the reCAPTCHA secret key plays in this validation process? Okay. So when the form is submitted, the reCAPTCHA generates a response token. This token, along with the secret key, is used to verify the response with Google reCAPTCHA's API. The secret key acts as a credential to securely validate that the requests originate from your site. So this is an example of validations in controller. Here, gReCAPTCHA response required captions apply validations to ensure the reCAPTCHA response is correct. Number 5. How can customizing error message for failed reCAPTCHA attempts improves user experience? Provide an example of how would you handle reCAPTCHA errors in a Laravel controller. Customizing error message make the reCAPTCHA experience more user-friendly. Okay, for example, instead of a generic validation failed message, you can provide a more helpful message such as please complete the reCAPTCHA to continue. This improves usability by giving user a clear feedback. So this is how will you add a custom error message in validations. And in these examples above or below, the custom message provides users with clear instructions if they failed the reCAPTCHA check. So here, please complete the reCAPTCHA to verify you are human, and the reCAPTCHA verification page, please try again. Okay, so assessment number 5. What is the purpose of integrating OTP functionality into a Laravel applications? And how does it enhance security for users? So the purpose of integrating a one-time password or OTP functionality is to provide an additional layers of security for user authentication processes. such as login, registration, and sensitive actions like password resets. OTP enhance security by ensuring that even if a user's password is compromised, unauthorized access is prevented since the attacker would also need the OTP, which is typically sent via email or SMS and expires quickly. Number 2. Describe the process of generating and sending an OTP via email in Laravel. What configure steps are needed in the env file to set up an email functionality? Okay, so step 1 is in your env file, you will configure your email service provider settings. Here. So you will put the username, the password, and the email here. And second, step 2 is in your controller, you will generate an OTP when needed. This is how you generate a 6-digit OTP. And it will store in the sessions in the OTP. So step 3 is send the OTP via email. Use Laravel Mails Facade to send the OTP. So this is how you do it. And this will be the example of OTP mail class. And then step 4 is you will create the email view, which you can put there. Example, your OTP code, and your OTP code is, and the 6-digit show here. Okay, so number 3, explain how you can integrate an SMS OTP service using Twilio in Laravel. What configuration are required in the env file and the controller to send OTP via SMS? So, okay. So, step 1 is configure Twilio credentials. So, in your env files, add the Twilio credentials, which will look like this. So, you will add your Twilio SID, your Twilio O token, and your Twilio phone number. And you will install the Twilio SDK via Composer. And this is how you installed it. And then you will use the Twilio client to send the OTP, which the code will look something like this. So number 4, how can you handle the OTP verification in Laravel? Describe the process of validating the OTP and the necessary step to handle success or failure of verifications. So first is you will create a verification method here. Create a verification method. Then step 2 is you will handle OTP expiry. So you can set a time limit validity like here. So it's either 5 minutes, 10 minutes, or whatever you like. And let's see, number 5 is what are some key customization options available when handling OTPs such as error message or retry attempts, and how can this improve the user experience? So custom error messages provides a clear user-friendly error message, helps users understand what went wrong. Instead of generic message, customize them to indicate whether the OTP was incorrect or expired. So this is a examples of custom error message. And retry attempt allows users to retry entering the OTP limited number of times before locking them out or requiring them to request a new OTP. This helps prevent abuse while still allowing legitimate users to succeed. So this is examples of implementing a retry logic. So yeah.